All right, so we're diving into all this stuff about church administration, and I gotta say, it's not usually something I think about for like fun, you know?
Uh-huh, yeah.
But I have a feeling this is going to be pretty interesting, like seeing how things really work behind the scenes.
Yeah, you might be surprised by how much is going on that people don't even realize.
Exactly. We're going to get a look at how it all runs, like from the mission statement stuff down to the actual budgets.
And how all of those things work together to make a church work and work well.
So, you mentioned the mission statement being super important. I get that it's like a guide or whatever, but what
Yeah.
makes it so important for everything the church does?
Well, think about it this way. A church without a clear mission, it's kind of like a ship without a rudder. It might be moving, but it's just going wherever the wind blows it.
Ah, okay.
That mission statement, it's like a compass, you know? It
Mhm.
helps the church stay focused and make decisions that match its goals and its values.
So it's not just like some old document they made and forgot about. It actually like affects how the church does things.
Yeah. Exactly. Every decision they make, what programs to have, how they spend money, it should all come back to that mission statement.
Okay, that makes sense. Speaking of money, let's talk about how churches handle that, the finances. Why is it so important for them to be transparent about that stuff?
Transparency it's really the key to building trust with the congregation. When people know how their money is being used and that it's being used responsibly, they're more likely to give more. Plus, they feel like they're a bigger part of the church's mission.
So it's not just about like avoiding scandals or whatever, it's more about building that trust.
Yeah, and that trust can turn into more support for the church's goals and what they want to do.
Yeah.
Shows integrity and stewardship.
You mentioned something earlier, resource allocation.
hmm
Can you explain what that is? Like, how does that work?
Resource allocation is basically just deciding how a church uses its money to support the things it does, its programs and ministries. Think of it as making a budget that helps them achieve their mission.
So if a church is really focused on like helping the community, you'd expect their budget to show that, right?
Yeah, exactly. If what a church says it does and how it spends its money don't match up, then that's a problem.
It's like checking to see if they're actually doing what they say they're doing.
Right. And that transparency with money lets the people see that connection and hold the leadership accountable.
We're talking about church administration, but it's not just about the money, is it? What other stuff falls under that?
Oh, there's so much more. All the activities and programs a church has, events, volunteers, communication, even how they handle emergencies.
Wow, I never really thought about all that.
It takes a lot of work to make sure it all runs smoothly.
And I bet it takes a lot of different skills to manage it all.
It does. Organizational skills, communication, financial stuff, leadership, it's a lot.
Speaking of keeping up with the times, how are churches handling this digital age? I feel like it's pretty important to have a strong online presence these days.
It's absolutely essential. Churches need to go where people are, and these days that's online. Having a good website, being active on social media, and making it easy to donate online are all so
Yeah.
important.
It's almost like churches need to become like their own little media companies.
In a way, yeah. But it's not about being flashy or anything. It's about using these tools to get their message out there, connect with people, and make it easier to be a part of the church.
And let's be real, not every church is super tech savvy. It's a lot to learn for some of them, right?
Sure. But there are plenty of resources out there to help. And the benefits are huge, especially for reaching younger people who are online all the time.
So it's more than just having a website, it's about using those tools to build relationships.
Right. It's understanding that the way people communicate has changed, and churches need to change too.
This reminds me of something else you talked about, the whole sustainability thing and planning for the future.
Yep. That's becoming a bigger and bigger deal for churches.
So it's not just about saving energy or recycling. It's about making choices that will keep the church going strong in the future.
Exactly. It's about thinking ahead about what challenges might come up and making smart decisions that will help the church thrive for years to come.
So that could mean finding new ways to bring in money, investing in their staff, or even finding new ways to be a part of their community.
All of that, yeah. It's about adapting to a changing world and staying relevant.
It's about being good stewards, not just of their money, but also of their mission and their impact on the world.
Exactly. And that stewardship applies to everything they do, how they handle their money, how they treat their people, and how they interact with their community.
So church administration is a lot more than just like doing paperwork and having meetings. It's about building a strong foundation for the church to grow and do what it's supposed to do.
It really is. It's about leadership and innovation and building a community of faith.
Okay, so we've talked about mission statements and finances and the digital age and sustainability. But there's still so much more to church administration, right?
There is, yeah. One of the most important parts we haven't talked about yet is the people.
You mean the staff and volunteers and leadership? They're really the heart of it all, aren't they?
Exactly. And that's what we'll talk about next.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear more about that. How are churches investing in their people and building good teams?
That's a great question and a big part of it all.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll jump right back into that.
Sounds good.
All right, we're back and ready to talk about the people side of things. You know, we talked about all the mission statements and budgets and all that, but now it's time to focus on the people who actually make it all happen.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting,
Mhm.
because now we're talking about leadership, teamwork, a whole community working together.
You mentioned before how important it is to invest in staff and volunteers. What does that actually look like? Like, how do you invest in people?
Well, first you got to recognize that your staff and volunteers, they're the most valuable thing you have. They're the ones who are actually doing the work, interacting with people, making the church a welcoming place. Investing in them means giving them opportunities to learn and grow, offering fair pay and benefits, and creating a culture where they feel appreciated and supported.
Right, so it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about making a good work environment, one where people feel valued.
Exactly. Burnout is a real issue in ministry, so it's so important to support people, both professionally and personally.
I imagine finding and keeping good staff can be tough for churches, especially smaller ones.
It can be, yeah. Churches often struggle to offer the same salaries as secular jobs, especially for specialized roles.
Yeah, like if they need a financial manager or a communications director or something.
Exactly. And even for things like youth pastors or music ministers, it can be so hard to find the right person.
Someone who's actually good at what they do and passionate about ministry.
Yeah, it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
And once you find them, you got to keep them. That's where creating a positive work environment comes in.
So it's like a two-part thing. Find good people and then make them want to stay.
Exactly. And don't forget about the volunteers. They're essential to so many churches. But knowing how to manage volunteers well, that's a whole other skill.
Yeah, I can see how that could be tricky. You're working with people who are giving their time for free, so you have to be careful not to take advantage of that.
Definitely. You need to communicate clearly, provide good training, and show them that you appreciate what they do.
It's about building relationships and making them feel like they're a part of something important.
Exactly. When volunteers feel valued and like they're making a difference, they're more likely to stick around.
So I'm curious about leadership. Like, what kind of impact does good leadership have on a church?
Oh, it's huge. I've seen firsthand how a passionate and visionary leader can completely change a church. I remember working with this one church where the pastor was really committed to empowering young adults.
That's cool. What did he do?
Well, he created this leadership program just for them with mentorship, theological training, and hands-on experience in different ministry areas.
So he wasn't just talking at them, he was actually helping them become leaders.
Right. And the results were amazing. In just a few years, these young adults were leading their own ministries, organizing community outreach, even starting new churches.
Wow, that's really impressive. It shows how important it is to invest in the next generation of leaders.
It really does. It's all about helping people find their gifts and giving them the support they need to use them.
It's about recognizing their potential and creating opportunities for them to step up.
Exactly. And when you do that, it creates this sense of ownership and belonging that benefits the whole church.
So we've covered investing in staff, managing volunteers, and the importance of strong leadership. It sounds like we're starting to get a good picture of what makes a church run well.
We're getting there, but there's still more to talk about.
Oh, like what?
Well, we've been talking a lot about what happens inside the church, but it's also really important to look outward to see how the church interacts with its community.
That makes sense. It's not like a church exists in a bubble, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And how a church chooses to engage with its community can have a huge impact.
So we're talking about outreach programs, partnerships with other groups, maybe even advocacy work.
All of that, yeah. And this is where the mission statement comes back into play.
Because their actions should reflect their values.
Exactly. We'll talk more about this after a quick break.
So before the break, we were talking about how a church's mission should shape how it works with the community. It seems like there's a lot more to it than just, Sunday services.
Yeah, for sure. A church that's really living out its mission will be actively involved in its community, helping people, building relationships, making a real difference.
So, like, what does that actually look like? What kind of stuff would you expect to see from a church that's really engaged with its community?
Well, it could be a lot of different things, depending on the church and the community. Some churches might focus on social services like food pantries or shelters for people experiencing homelessness.
Right.
Others might focus more on education, like after-school programs or job training.
It sounds like it's about finding ways to use what the church has, its resources and the talents of its people, to meet the needs of the people around them.
Exactly. And it often means working with other organizations, both religious and non-religious, to have a bigger impact and reach more people.
Like being a good neighbor, not just talking about it, but actually doing it.
Exactly. And that kind of genuine community involvement can really make a difference, building trust and a sense of belonging and leading to positive changes that go way beyond the church itself.
This makes me think about what we talked about earlier about churches adapting to the digital world. Could technology actually help them connect with their communities in new ways?
Definitely. We talked about how having a good online presence helps churches connect with their members, but it can also be a great way to reach new people and get involved in the wider community.
Yeah, so instead of just posting like videos of sermons online, they could be using social media to let people know about events, share information about what the community needs, or even team up with other organizations to get their message out there.
Exactly. And they could use their website to offer resources to people who need help, host online support groups, or even have virtual events that bring people together.
It's about understanding that the internet isn't just for entertainment, it's a place where you can build real connections and communities.
Absolutely. And churches that can reach way more people than just those who physically come to their building. They can connect with anyone who might need their support and resources.
Let's go back to something we touched on earlier, sustainability and planning for the future. How does that fit into all of this?
Sustainability is so important for churches these days. It's not just about the environment, but also about financial stability and making sure the church can adapt to changes.
So it's about more than just saving energy or recycling, right? It's about making decisions that will keep the church healthy and strong for a long time.
Exactly. It's about thinking ahead, about what might happen in the future, and making plans so the church can keep going strong for years to come.
So that might mean finding different ways to get funding, investing in their staff's professional development, or even finding new ways to connect with the community.
Right. It's all about being flexible and being willing to change so the church can stay relevant and effective.
It's about being good stewards, not just of their money, but also of their mission and how they impact the world.
Exactly. And that stewardship should be a part of everything the church does, from how it manages its money to how it takes care of its people and its community.
So we've learned that church administration is a lot more than people might think. It's not just about boring paperwork and meetings. It's about building a strong foundation so the church can thrive and really make a difference.
Absolutely. It's about leadership and innovation and creating a strong, welcoming community.
It's about more than just what happens on Sundays, right?
Right. It's about every aspect of how a church functions and how it connects with the world around it.
So now that you've heard all this, what are your thoughts? How do you see your own church's administration? What questions do you have?
It's a lot to think about, isn't it? And remember, if you're interested in learning more about specific aspects of church administration, there are tons of resources available online and through church leadership associations.
Next time you're at church, take a moment to appreciate everyone who works behind the scenes to make it all happen. You might be surprised at what you discover.